Citizens of the Reject Nation. We have just watched here at IMAX Venom 3 The Last Dance. John, how you feeling?
I am feeling a lot of feelings right now. I'm in mourning because it's the last Venom movie. I'm going to miss these opportunities to have some weird, wacky fun at the theaters.
I didn't think I would miss these opportunities in this movie franchise, but it was hitting me like close to the end of, I'm gonna miss doing this. Miss these movies.
Yeah,
it really
absolutely.
did hit me. Guys, while you're here, leave a like on this video. We'll just give our short opinions, and then we can just ramble on and talk in whatever direction we want to talk about. That way we don't have to think about it too much. You get your short opinion, you can leave if you want. If you want a little bit more details, stick around. I like that planety. My short opinion about this movie is I really felt like, and this does not seem to be the popular opinion based off of walking out of the theater.
What did you think there?
Yeah, I feel like it's the best Venom movie that they've done. Of course it's not without its faults. It's a Venom movie. At times it's like cheesy when it doesn't want to be cheesy, sure. At times does it feel like clunky in the ADR and the editing? I'm like, yeah, like the Venom movies do. However, I felt like this movie did take itself more serious. I was kind of concerned that the movie might actually be at conflict with itself a little too much about that. I can imagine that some people will feel like it was. For me, I actually thought it worked. I thought that the drama and the melancholy that it would actually present allowed me to get more invested in it. I thought it had great scene work. I feel like this is the best finale out of any of the Venom movies. I found myself getting enthralled. It was exciting. I was not expecting to say this. I did not think I would be the Venom defender, but
the lethal protector.
I really did enjoy the hell out of this movie. I didn't realize they shot some of this with IMAX cameras, and like watching some of the
aspect change.
Watching some of those action scenes, especially that big creature that they keep advertising, I was surprised by like how great that looked and how cool some of the violence was. Like the action in this movie, I thought was really good too. Some really great chase sequences and cool choreography all around.
And fun, Venom-y fun and games.
I dug it. There's flaws for sure, but the pros really outweighed it for me on the experience.
I'm glad that you had that experience, and I feel like this is a movie I'm going to be chewing on all week.
This is one you reflect on.
Well,
this is one that you ponder.
The thing is,
this is the new Joker too.
It's true. Well, you know, some movies will surprise you, and this is a momentous occasion because ostensibly for now it is our last dance. I mean, that's the thing, is like the feeling it's left me off with is a bit different from the actual just feeling I had experiencing the movie for the first time, because just looking back on the totality of the movie, I'm like, yeah, I still had a lot of fun. I am sad to let go of these movies. Like, there is a sense of grieving, and not to, you know, say anything about what happens actually in the movie, but just the knowledge that, yeah, Tom Hardy's moving on, everybody's moving on. I am gonna miss that, and that feeling is hitting me right now. I will say, as a movie-going experience sitting in the theater in real time, it was sort of one of those where it kind of, it picked up qualities and things I was enjoying the further it went. It took about halfway into the movie for me to really kind of click into it and not be focusing on all these different kind of disparate elements that weren't coalescing the way I had hoped they could. I feel like you bring up a good point, because it's like, how do you criticize a Venom movie when you look back at the previous ones and you're like, the charms and the flaws are kind of all intertwined? And that's something that I think is fair to acknowledge, especially when looking at a movie like this. And I agree, like, there are certain things about it that are like surprisingly touching, surprisingly dramatic here or there, and there's the wacky, like you said, 90s comic book movie stuff. This did, to me, especially in the first half, feel like a movie that started off as a different movie and then got massively overhauled into something slighter, maybe more streamlined or something, because especially in the first third, like, the editing was kind of getting on my nerves, and there were so many scenes that felt, at least, like they were stitched together with very just blunt, straightforward ADR lines. It's weird. What kind of depth do you want from a Venom movie and the characters therein? Probably not a lot, but yeah, it took me a while for the movie to feel like it had a groove or a rhythm, and for me to be able to, through that, enjoy scene work or characters interacting with each other. And that actually did finally happen, maintained more and more as the movie went. I feel like it gets better as it goes along, but it was definitely like a shotgun blast of disparate elements. I feel like I've been using the words movie magic a lot lately. I feel like this movie starts off in the first third. I was like, the movie magic's not kicking in because I can just feel the weird editing and this odd tone and these very slight bits of dialogue that I can't fully imagine the person who wrote all these movies and is now directing all these movies had ideally in mind for some of this stuff. But again, once you get about halfway in, there's a great sort of chase that segues into sort of the direction of the movie for here on out. And once we got to there, it did start clicking together, and I did start being able to enjoy it for the right reasons rather than you know, any kind of number of maybe not right reasons.
Those are our overall opinions about the movie right there for you guys. We'll just talk a little bit further about it. And a good way to do that is kind of explain what the plot of the movie is. And it's actually very straightforward. And it's technically in the trailer. And I was surprised by this. The presence of Knull is actually laced throughout the film, throughout its entire runtime. I thought it might just be a short little thing that they pop in there and maybe say one time. But no, like Knull's presence is kind of a thing that is at least brought up. And you could feel like the impending aspect of Knull coming into the universe. There's basically this thing called a codex that exists within Venom and Eddie Brock, and that's why they're after them, is to obtain this codex, which can essentially let Knull be free. If you're like, oh my god, you're spoiling the movie, I'm like, there's like the first 30 seconds of the film. You literally just
the movie starts with like a PS5 cutscene that explains all this to you.
Yeah, it's just like so fast. And so I understand what you mean, because at the offset of this film, I was like, okay, yeah, we're walking into a typical Venom movie. This movie is insanely expositional. Much of the dialogue, you're like, who are you talking to when you're explaining this? Like, shouldn't you people know this already? Like, it's got that touch to it. But it's also something that I felt about the other ones. To me, outside of like the very first couple of scenes, the rest of it that would do that, there would still be a little something extra in each one of those scenes that I thought added a little bit more heart to it. Like there's this Juno Temple is the actress's name, the main blonde girl.
Yeah, the other Ted Lasso actor in this movie.
Yeah, so there's this scientist who is studying the symbiotes and has this whole like purpose behind like the trauma that she's had. Really cheesy way they portray the trauma, but there's something that happens towards the end of the movie that I thought brought a really nice heart and warmth to it. Yeah, even with her, like she's given a lot of those kind of lines that just feel like weird ADR that are inserted in there, but I really like the caring side of her. You could see that she is someone who really cares about these symbiotes. I like how it didn't feel like cheesy in the way she did it, or like there must be another agenda. Like there was something that felt genuine
from that character.
Yeah, I liked how genuine she felt. Chiwetel Ejiofor plays a very cliche, you know, soldier who doesn't like scientists.
Yeah, and who's never ever gonna open himself up to the possibility that alien life forms could be all right.
But I thought that he elevated that character when he starts to find this mission getting personal for him. I really believed him. There's a very big turning point for this character when it like, this is real for this guy now. I bought him. Like he does one thing in this movie, you're like, oh, come on, dude. And he's like, but it makes sense that this guy would do it.
Sure.
After that certain point. I appreciated too how this movie seemed to really embrace that it's an alien movie. They constantly remind you of that, but it really embraces the fact that it's an alien film.
Truly.
And there's a bit of like a sci-fi horror overtone at times.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the symbiotes lend themselves to that just by sheer force of their like imposing design and I forget the name of them because I'm a bad nerd, but the big creatures who are tracking them down and trying to eat them.
Xeno-go-gos or something. I remember
Xeno.
Once they said Xeno, I was like, oh, like a xenomorph. And then I got caught in my own thoughts.
They make you think of the xenomorph dogs in Predators or whatever. Yeah. And there's some like really kind of icky details that they put into those, you know, creatures and the just variants of symbiotes that you get to behold on screen.
And there's moments where, of course, this is one of those movies that at times the CGI will not look great. But there's other times where I was really impressed with the CGI, especially when it came to that Xeno thingy.
Yes.
Where there's one moment dogs. In like the daylight where
they have a lot of daylight
repairs itself, and I was like, this looks so real right now.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what shot you're talking about too, because and even the physics of how that works is like kind of fascinating in a way that the movie doesn't need to go like, look at this, but you're just beholding it and you're like, oh wow, I would like to look a little closer at that. That's interesting. And it's a nice counterpoint to the symbiotes.
Venom Let There Be Carnage, the way that was written felt reactionary towards the response of the first Venom movie. There was that bromance quality that like, they're a couple, but they're not. They were like, let's just go hardcore on this. To be an odd couple in here. That's what they did. I thought the movie was just messy and loud. Even though nothing really will ever look as cool as Carnage, I don't really remember the fight scene. Like I don't really none of that. I remember that just being like kind of obnoxious. When it comes to this movie, I really feel like the friendship of them, how they take care of each other, has a nice warmth to the film.
That genuinely does, yeah.
The interaction, I like Tom Hardy does such a great job at making you forget that he's doing a voiceover for Venom. He's not interacting with anybody. And it's always like, helping him have something to look forward to. Even when you can tell he's feeling hopeless, he doesn't impose that hopeless. Sometimes he like gets cynical and lashes out because he's like cranky in
they
a lot
balance
of this movie.
each other out. Yeah, it's that thing of like when cranky guy realizes he's over crankied, or he sees that his buddy is like really in need and kind of is able to transcend that and actually be a genuine friend or whatever. Like you really do feel the bond as it's grown over 3 movies in this movie.
I thought it was the most heartfelt. Like I found myself getting actually emotional towards the end of the film, and I feel like this is the best finale out of any Venom movie, hands down. I was like, whoa, this is kind of intense. I have never said the word intense in any of these movies.
And I'm kind of, and I'm feeling the weight of the circumstances a little bit, even though it is, broad and fun in certain ways. Like in the third act, especially, and in like the big finale fight, that's when I felt like the movie's more serious aspirations clicked in and kind of complemented everything else.
Well, you see, then I start to wonder when we talk about the serious stuff about this movie. I'm like, okay, will the serious stuff be actually off-putting? Because I think this movie's tone overall, because you get like the comedy moments for sure, like that this franchise has kind of been known for. But the first trailer for this movie, and it seemed like they were pretending to be serious. Like, no, this one actually is more of that tone for most of this film. Mm-hmm. It is more of a serious movie. And I'm kind of wondering if perhaps like comic fans might be happier about that, but will those who really grew to love this franchise and what it does, especially after the second one, just like double down on the cheesy B movie that it is? Will they like how they're taking an approach for it being more serious? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It had me questioning that.
I have no idea. This is the first time I'm like, I have no idea what fans of this particular franchise will think, fans of just comics and Venom in general will think.
Yeah.
Like your average moviegoer who's not an expert on any of that will think.
And, I think we should also shout out to, while we're here, there's one returning character that you see in the trailer, and there's a new character in here, Rhys Ifans. All right, I'm not going to get your hopes up. It's no freaking Spider-Man tie-in with the guy. All right, he's a totally new character.
They did a fine job of taking actors who you've seen in a bunch of Marvel and not actually distracting you that much with the fact that you've seen them in a bunch of Marvel. Like, it worked better than I thought it would.
Well, they make a multiverse joke at the top of this movie that felt right out of Deadpool.
Yeah.
I was like, did they see Deadpool 3? Because that joke seems like it's taken right.
Yeah, it totally does, yeah.
But there's Rhys Ifans in here. He's actually in it a lot. Is this... I mean, they don't really tell you in the trailer. You see them on the road at some point, but he plays like a hippie guy
with one arm who later becomes a lizard.
Lizard becomes a lizard, but it's not connected to the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
It's completely unrelated.
I thought he was really funny. He was very funny, and he made the character feel human. Honestly, when he first shows up, I'm like, this movie's just pushing like such a generic character. I'm so worried about it. But he made that role work, and especially for the amount of screen time that guy gets in this film.
Yeah.
I was really surprised by this is really working, and that was the last thing I expected when this character showed up on screen.
Yeah, his character and the other characters who are the little family that surround him bring a lot of heart and fun, but they also like weirdly find a way to complement the rest of the story while being, kind of a subplot within it as well. Like I was actually kind of pleased to see, that you easily. I imagine Sony is using that to some degree as stunt casting, but it was one of my favorite elements of the movie, Rhys Ifans and the sort of circumstances surrounding him. And that stuff also lends itself to what you mentioned earlier about it's being like an alien movie and an appreciation of alien movies, without doing too many like, oh, here's a shot from a movie, and here's another shot from a movie, and here's a line,
Yeah.
There's one line in there where I was like, I think that's a reference to The Thing, but even the movie wasn't like, see?
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice,
This seems more like perhaps what I feel like this writer wanted to do with the first one. She write the first movie? I don't know. I don't know if she did. Let's assume she did.
For now.
By assumption, I feel like this is probably more of what she sort of envisioned that the first movie could be tonally. Yeah. Because, the trailers for this movie, I get why it's tracking low. The trailers don't really look the most exciting.
They don't look like a truly unique like finale to the Venom series so much as just another Venom adventure in the trailer.
Because it looks like a lot of desert and a lot of random Venom,
which we've seen a lot of desert fight scenes lately in cinema.
But there's more of the cool usage of the symbiote, and I really thought that there's surprises that happen in here. Nothing that's like groundbreakingly surprising, like holy holy shit. But there's some cool stuff that happens in this movie. And I was pleasantly surprised by how much I actually found myself going, this isn't mad at me. I really like
Sure.
this, and I think this is the best one.
Well, and I remember walking out of the first Venom thinking to myself, like, that was very odd. What was that? And then in the coming days, I was like, you know what, though? That was so charming. And, like, yeah, the things that work really save it. And I could see in a couple days being like, you know what, though? The things that work, you know, really might have elevated that. You know, I'm still going to sit and kind of think on that. But even the stuff... It's like here sitting now talking about it with you, like I do kind of want to watch it again because the fun elements and the elements that are, you know, speaking to the totality of this little series that they've created that seems like in a lot of ways it should never have existed, or at least like it seems like the product of like very strange circumstances that aren't the norm. You know, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the journey.
And from what like I recall about like Venom in comics, like this feels the most akin in some ways to what I recall from it. And I believe Tom Hardy's because they had a story by credit on this one. I mean, he might have had one on the last one.
They both came up with the story.
The thing that really separates this movie for me from the other two is I actually believed the stakes, which is what made the finale engaging, is that there was actual stakes at hand. The other two are big, but there's no stakes to them. And it doesn't matter what genre of film you're making. Like, take Superbad, like that's a comedy, but the stakes are so big for them, you know?
Yeah.
Like I watched Diary of the Wimpy Kid here, and it's like a teenage, not even teenage boy, it's like a little boy's problems.
It's like junior high kid, yeah.
But you really believe like the stakes for them. And this movie, which is like a comic book movie, they need to have stakes, and they might not be like the biggest stakes in the world, but it's the first Venom movie where I felt like it had actually had stakes that I bought into. Now, the big question is, would I like this movie if the other ones weren't what they were? I like the first movie, but like if they weren't what they were, I don't know. We don't live in that world. There's no point in playing that what if game. The reality is this is a part 3.
Unless you are seeing this as your first Venom movie, like, the mess is going to exist in context. And like how you process that mess is going to exist within that greater context.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess I give it like a 8 out of 10 nipple chills.
Not bad.
Yeah, why not? Send enough. Give me nice for the last one.
Sure, I'll give it like
Probably won't get like a high of a rating anywhere else.
From anybody else, but you heard it here.
I'll just give it away. Give it away.
I'll give it like a 6.8.
That's fine by me. We've switched roles today, John.
Well, and I mean, this is like the inverted Venom movie where it's like, the first one is like, the first 2/3 are really fun, and then you have a kind of generic finale, and this is like the first third is odd, and then you build to a pretty great finale, which is like kind of a nice inverse at least. And like I'm gonna be sitting and chewing on this for sure.
Okay, a part that did let me down a little bit before we go.
Oh, what? No,
the usage,
can't backtrack now.
There's a usage of Stephen Graham in this film, which at first when introduced, I thought, okay, cool. And I like how he's bringing in, like, there's a bit of a horror aspect to what they're doing with him. To me, I think this movie is paced, like it's shot, and the way the scenes breathe feel like more of an actual scene to me than a lot of the other Venom movies.
Once you get about halfway into this movie, scenes begin to breathe, and Stephen Graham is a part of some of those scenes.
But Stephen Graham's character here, I just feel like if you bring him back, you could better utilize him for the caliber of talent that is Stephen Graham. He is such a good actor.
I thought they were going to like one up or pay off in some way with his connection to the symbiotes, something in this movie that would top or build on what we got in the last movie and punctuate his presence here rather than just like, he's back, he's here.
Yeah, it was a bit of a letdown. While there's aspects to it I for sure liked, I would say in terms of that return, like, come on. Maybe a lot of you guys don't know, but he is like an amazing actor.
He's an incredible actor.
He's a phenomenal actor. Anyway, that's it for today. I recommend watching this on IMAX because we're here and they let us come here. So, keep watching on IMAX so we can keep getting these screens. And on top of that, too, anything that has some IMAX shot, any movie that has, like, I'm seeing shot with IMAX cameras, the only way to experience that is on IMAX. So go to IMAX.
Yeah. And I mean, they threw down for those effects because, like, the 70 millimeters double the size of 35. So, There's extra detail in every frame.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Leave a like on your way out. Tell us what your favorite Venom movie is, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.